Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to NASA's Johnson Space Center for our post-mission management team press briefing. Joining us once again is Leroy Kane. He's the Deputy Manager of the Space Shuttle Program and the Chairman of the MMT, and he'll have some comments for you. And then, of course, we'll take questions here and then out on the phone bridge. With that, I'll turn it over to Leroy.
Thank you, Kyle. Good afternoon. It's very nice to be here with you again today. I'm pleased to report that the rendezvous and docking of Atlantis to the International Space Station was absolutely flawless this morning. I think most of you hopefully had a chance to see it. I personally felt privileged to be part of this team as I watched it from my post in the back halls of Mission Control today. It was really moving to see the final docking of the shuttle to the space station. So I believe this was the 37th docking of the shuttle to the International Space Station. And for Atlantis, it would be the 12th time that Atlantis has docked to the station. And if you're counting overall dockings for Atlantis, Atlantis had the most missions to the Mir station, tallying up 7 total Mir flights. So Atlantis, I believe, is the orbiter that has the most dockings to space stations, for that matter. Things continue to go really well for us. It was a very good day this morning. The crew's day continues for a couple more hours here before they go to bed, and so they have a little bit more activity. But it's been a very good day for us since I was here last to talk to you. It's been a great day for the crew on orbit, for both the shuttle and the station crew, as well as the entire team on the ground. They've just done an outstanding job. So, in the mission management team today, we talked only briefly about a few items. We got a very good status overall of how things are going. I talked to you yesterday about the cryogenics, and we're very interested in that, as we always are. But in this case, we would like, as soon as possible, to understand whether or not we might not have enough margin to extend by 1 day. Our friends in the space station program are very interested in that. So, as excuse me, as it stands now, we have 1 day and 4 hours of margin approximately. And so tomorrow, I believe the space station program in the space station, International Space Station Program mission management team in the morning, they will begin discussing the plus 1 day and whether or not they want to officially request that from us. And they'll work on the exact list of tasks and job jar items that the crew would perform in the event that we were able to extend a day. So they'll be working on that tomorrow, and there's a chance we'll discuss that in the MMT tomorrow. It's a little early for me to know whether or not it'll be ready for that discussion, but in any case, it'll be the next day or two, and we'll be able to have that discussion. It may have been reported to you, we had, where systems items are concerned, the crew today, when they were doing the configuration of all of the onboard systems for the rendezvous and proximity operations, they had a problem with GPC-3, that's general purpose computer number 3. Those are the onboard computers, of which we have 4 for the primary software system. And so on rendezvous prox ops day, we do what's called expand the set, and we bring a 3rd GPC into the set so we have some more redundancy for the proximity operations. And when the crew did that operation today, GPC-3 had a small hiccup, and it decided that it should be turned itself off essentially, and it went to what we call halt. And the signature is one whereby we're pretty certain that this was what we call a switch tease condition. That is to say that when the crewman moves the switch from one position to the next, in this case, what we call the mode switch, it doesn't get quite seated in the intended location that it's going to, and so the GPC doesn't understand an intermittent position between the two poles of the switch, and so it shuts down. And looking at the signature, as I said, we're pretty confident that's probably what we have here. We've seen this signature on this vehicle, on this GPC before, and so that's another indicator that. So we're not overly concerned with that. We're not actually even calling it an anomaly yet. The team has scheduled a data dump from that computer tomorrow during the crew's day, and that dump will give us some more indications of the internal workings of the GPC and what it has logged in terms of any kind of errors and things of that nature. But overall, not a concern for us. Additionally, fuel cell 3, the flow meter apparently has an erratic transducer. This is a very minor thing because this transducer is a secondary cue to indicate the consumption of the cryogenics and the performance overall of the fuel cell, and we have many other ways of determining both the performance and the cryo consumption. So it's not an issue. It's a nuisance, and the team on the ground has inhibited that so that we don't get any nuisance alarms from that. So no issue with that item. The team reported that we are following what might be a conjunction. That is to say, a piece of orbital debris, an item that between us and the station as a docked unit we'll need to watch out for in the next couple days. It looks right now like our point of closest approach would occur on the EVA day, flight day 5, during the EVA. However, we don't really have a good PC on it yet, and that's the probability of collision, and so that all needs to be computed. We need to get some updated state vectors to give us the best accurate information, the navigation information about exactly where the shuttle station combined stack is in inertial space. A lot of times on rendezvous day when we dock, there are a number of perturbations in the trajectory of both vehicles, and so we can't say with any certainty whether we really have a conjunction, but it's a potential is what I would say right now that we have a conjunction. And if we do, then we'll work through our normal procedures and processes for dealing with that. And we'll probably know, excuse me, quite a bit better by about this time tomorrow whether that's really going to be something that we want to look at. The damage assessment team, I'll just give you a brief status there. As you know, the Flight Day 2 inspections were all completed, and preliminarily we didn't see anything. All the data was downlinked, and the team has had an opportunity to go through all of that data. There's perhaps some of the final peer review remaining on the wing leading edge and the nose cap systems, but overall they look very good, and we don't have any indications that we're going to have any problems there. We did all but clear the wing leading edge today in the MMT. We'll do that when we do the rest of the TPS in the next day or two, but looks very good for the RCC. On the rendezvous pitch maneuver, the data from that is nearly all on the ground now. The 400 millimeter data, the 800 millimeter data is on the ground, and the team is reviewing all of that data. We still have the 1,000 millimeter data that was in the process of being downlinked when I walked over here this afternoon. So I expect that to be on the ground here and be assessed, and we may be able to even preliminarily give the crew some indication before they go to sleep tonight about 6 o'clock in the evening. It just depends on if we get the rest of the data down and get at least an initial look at it in time. I think I may have mentioned yesterday the focused inspection meeting, the meeting where we talk about the DAT team and the other engineering and safety experts around the program get together and talk about the likelihood or the need for a focused inspection, and so the first of those is tonight at 5 p.m. local time. So look forward to the results of that meeting. I don't anticipate that there's anything we're going to need to look at based on all the preliminary data we have, but we'll let everybody do our normal process here as we always do. And then finally, the Ascent trajectory and flight dynamics experts came in. They gave us the Ascent quick look summary today, and it was very, very good. The vehicle flew quite well, and there were no issues with the Ascent flight dynamics data to include all of the propulsion elements and all of the normal things that we look at in the quick look data in terms of the trajectory parameters and the winds and all of the things that affect the vehicle flight path as we ascend to orbit. And so all of that looked very good. There were a number of problems with the balloon system that we use, the gym spheres and the balloons that we use to evaluate the winds and the weather on launch day. And the team has such a robust set of backup procedures and down modes and off ramps for all of those scenarios that it barely made it to management's attention all the things that they were working on launch day, and they did it quite seamlessly with what turns out to be a pretty challenging day because the balloons were tending to ice up at some of the higher altitudes. And so they did an outstanding job working through all that. And again, just another example of things that were going on behind the scenes on launch day, any one of which could have prevented us from being able to actually launch on Friday. And the team just did a great job all the way around. So that was a very good status that they gave us today. Obviously, there'll be more in-depth review of all of that data, but as we call it, it's a quick look. And as a quick look goes, it looked very, very good. I think that's about all I have to report. I should mention the booster ops. We have the right-hand boosters in the port. The left-hand booster will be in the port tonight, and then slip ops will occur tomorrow with open assessment to occur on Tuesday. I think I mistakenly mentioned yesterday, I think I was off by a day. I was getting my flight days and calendar days mixed up. And so the boosters are, again, one is in the port. The left booster will be in tonight around midnight, I think is what they said. And then we'll do slip ops tomorrow morning and during the day tomorrow with open assessment on Tuesday. So it was also reported that we might be able to expect the video from the boosters sometime on Monday, and so we'll look forward to that as well. So with that, again, in summary, the mission is going exceedingly well. We're very much looking forward to our multi-purpose logistic module operations tomorrow, where we pull the MPLM out of the payload bay and move it over onto the space station and get on with the transfer of all this critical cargo in earnest. And the crew is finishing up with a few items to prepare for that activity tomorrow, to include handing off the OBSS, the robotic boom that we use ultimately tomorrow to help us move the MPLM over to the station. And so they're winding up their activities on board, and they're finishing up what has been a very productive and successful day on orbit. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, great. We'll take them here and then out on the phone bridge. And of course, as before, you have to walk up to the microphone or nobody on the net is going to be able to hear you. So spelling bee contestant number one, Mark Carreau.
Hey, thanks. Mark Carreau for Aviation Week. Do you have anything on the size or origin of the debris that you're tracking for a potential conjunction? Then I had a follow-up.
I don't, Mark. What we were told today was very preliminary, so I don't know what kind of object it is. I don't even know what the object number is. Most of these objects are in our, quote, catalog. So no, I don't have that information. We'll probably have it later today or tomorrow.
Thanks. And I'll acknowledge this may not have an answer, but it seems good to ask. If you had to maneuver, could you do it without interfering with the timing of the spacewalk, or would the discussion about extending the mission, if you had to maneuver, include changing the spacewalk to accommodate that, or am I way ahead? Behind?
Well, it's okay. You're a little ahead, and that's okay. In all likelihood, it would not interfere with what we're doing on the spacewalk. If we do what a debris avoidance maneuver to get away from an object, in this case, we would do it using the shuttle VRCS, the small little thrusters. And so in all likelihood, we could do that in an operation where it's not going to impact what we're trying to do in the normally planned activities of the flight plan on that day. So now, having said that, until I know what it is and what kind of maneuver, and we have all of the details, you know, as you said to begin with, it's a little ahead in that sense. But generally speaking, I don't anticipate that's going to be any issue at all.
Bill?
Bill Harwood, CBS. It's a related question. It's almost what he asked, but in a different form. The flight rule with the box that you guys maintain around the station, is it the same box when the shuttle's attached? Are the dimensions different? And I don't understand, does the rule change if there's a spacewalk involved? I don't know how EVAs play into the box and what your rules are about what you can and can't do.
It's a good question, Bill. If the rule is different, to be specific, for while we're doing a spacewalk, I'm not aware of that, and I'll have to refresh my memory on the details of it in that regard. And the team will brief us on all of those specifics. What they told us today was very preliminary in terms of, we just found out that we might have a conjunction, so I didn't have a chance to go back and and review those specifics. I don't think it's different if we've got folks outside versus not, but we'll have those details tomorrow.
Gina Sinceri, ABC News. Could you walk me through the process that you are going through now that you know about this conjunction? What kind of teams are working on it? What do they do? Who's involved? I mean, kind of would you paint that picture for me?
Sure, Gina. The organization that alerts us of these objects is in the mountain, the Spacecom folks, or Stratcom. I lose track of their name, and it changes so often we can't even keep it correct in our flight rules. But at any rate, that organization is responsible for overall keeping track of all the objects that are in orbit. And so we have a process where there's a notification that goes to our flight dynamics and trajectory experts here in Mission Control for space station operations and for shuttle operations. In the shuttle room, that's the flight dynamics officer or the FIDO. In the station room, that's the TOPO, which is trajectory operations and planning officer, I believe. At any rate, they perform roughly the same function for the two different vehicles with some differences, as you can imagine. Those folks are notified, and they then notify the next level of management. In this case, it would be the flight director. And then depending on the timing and whether or not the event is going to occur in the next 24 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours, then the urgency and the level of notification goes up as the reaction time goes down. So in this case, we've got a couple of days. It's a few days away, if you will. And so we just got the notification today in the mission management team. I imagine the mission ops team found out about it sometime earlier this morning. And so there's a process of checks and balances between the flight dynamics team and the folks in the mountain who have the state vector data, if you will, for all the objects. And so then they compare their notes, and it's an iterative process from there until the time of the day or the hour of the day of closest approach, whereby we then assess what turns out to be the calculation for the probability of collision. And then based on what the PC is, and it changes with every new vector that we get, we'll take action based on what's outlined in our flight rules and the guidance that's provided in those rules. So there's a notification process from the mountain to us, and from internal to the control center, then it goes up the mission ops chain all the way up to higher management as may be necessary in the shuttle and or station program, depending on whether or not there's going to be some action that's required. And then in addition to that, of course, the station on their part, they talk with the international partners, they talk with the Russians, and if we have to maneuver the station, and then so the notification just goes on. And that's basically how it works for a given object.
Robert.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. On the subject of adding an extra day to the mission, given the margins that you have now, can you just maybe provide some examples of what would need to happen for you not to have that option any longer when you do consider it? Like, what would prevent you at this point from adding an extra day?
Well, if we somehow came in and said, well, our cryo consumable calculations were wrong, there was something we didn't take into account. In other words, we got that number wrong, and we were suddenly something less than 24 hours margin, then it's not something I would be willing to commit to. Barring that, given that the station has a need and a very strong desire and a need for us to add a day, if we've got the margin, then I'm probably willing to do it. And there are other factors of extending the mission, and assuming all things are more or less equal with those other factors to include the crew's schedule, the crew's health, the team on the ground, and the activities that they would like to complete. All of those things that, if they're otherwise pretty much equal, then that's about the only thing that would prevent it.
Dan.
Dan Vergano with USA Today. Leaving aside the conjunction issue, I was wondering if you could characterize the crew's activities in the coming week. When we write to our readers that they're resupplying the station. That doesn't sound like they're too busy. I was wondering if maybe you would have a different perspective, or if you could share your perspective on that.
Well, I'll certainly try. They will be busy, I promise you that. And so tomorrow we do the actual move of the large MPLM from the payload bay to the space station and berth it, and then essentially open up the hatch at the end of that activity, and then the crew can begin to get in there and start to pull things out and actually begin the transfer operations. On flight day 5, we have our spacewalk, and then pretty much subsequent to that, we have a number of significant blocks of time where we're doing pretty much devoting most of our time to the transfer, stowage, unstowing, and repacking of the MPLM for the things that are returning in the MPLM. So I believe it's, I'll give you the exact number of hours. We've got about 30 hours of transfer for the mid-deck. So that's 30 man hours, 30 person hours, if you will, of work that has to be done to transfer items where the mid-deck alone is concerned. And we've got nearly 130 hours of multi-purpose logistic module transfer. So if you play all that out across an 8 or so docked day mission, plus a day or so, and then you divide that up between the crew members that we have, you can see that in addition to the other normally scheduled things that we do for any shuttle station docked mission, we're going to be able to keep them pretty busy. And so, as is per normal, the space station program, and again, I mentioned earlier, they will talk about this a good deal in their station MMT tomorrow morning, I believe. They will, as per normal, they will have a couple of job jar items undoubtedly on the space station side that they would ask for our help with in the event that we're able to extend a day. So it's kind of like your list that you have at home, right? There are always things, there's always work to do on the house. It doesn't matter how much you've done already or how new or how old the house is. There's always a list of things to do. Sometimes there are wish list items that you may never do. And other times there are obviously items that are maintenance items or otherwise that you're definitely going to do. And they have the same kind of thing on the space station. And so I mention that just to say that in addition to the additional work that we could do in terms of stowage and then setting up things on the station side of all of the cargo that we're bringing up, they will have unrelated job jar items that they will ask us to do, and they will be prioritized. And I'm very confident that we will be able to have very productive work for our four-person crew to do if we should extend a day.
If I could ask a second question, I was wondering could you put the conjunction in a little bit of perspective? You know, there was the flyby a week or so ago. Mm-hmm. You know, our readers might suddenly think that the thing is being bombarded. Could you sort of, you know, how often does this come up?
Well, I don't have a number for you in terms of how often. It's not uncommon. There's a lot of junk in orbit, and there are a lot of objects that are being tracked, and we have a very good process fortunately, we have a very good process for knowing where they are and how to avoid them in the cases where we need to avoid them. So it's not uncommon. And what you see happening is, in part anyway, we have a number of objects that are essentially spent rocket bodies or other ranging in size, space debris. And over time, these things will drag down from their original orbits. And so in some cases, there's a fluctuation of how much debris we see in the orbits that we worry about over time. And that'll change. It's not a constant. It changes because things drag down and they go away. It changes because new things are in the orbit. And so it's not a constant that happens once a day or twice a week or 100 times a year. It's not unusual for us to have to deal with it. We're having to deal with it more than we did 10 years ago. I don't know what it'll be like 10 years from now, but there are a lot of experts that could could give us those predictions and have given us in the larger sense of a space community, given those predictions to us, and will continue to do so as we go forward. So space debris is an issue, and it's one of the things that as an agency, we have some ideas about how we might approach this for future vehicles and some ways to manage things. And it's something that's constantly, it's on our radar screen.
Denise?
Just a quick clarification and then a follow-up. Did your team first receive notification of this potential conjunction this afternoon or this morning?
I believe it was this morning. I have to assume it was this morning. I don't have an exact time for you because I didn't ask for the exact time. But I have to assume it was this morning because I just found out at the MMT and right after lunchtime.
And then what's the latest time that you would want to have a definitive decision about adding an extra day?
Well, we have a little bit of time to talk. The team has indicated that if we should add the +1 day for the docked mission, they would like to insert it after what is today Flight Day 8 in the nominal timeline. So in order to do that and to do it efficiently and effectively, you'd really like to start having that in the new timeline that you publish to the crew on board around about Flight Day 6. And so if I back up from that, it'd be nice to make a decision by Flight Day 5. It's probably not necessarily required before Flight Day 6, but I don't see any reason we're not going to be able to make that decision in the next day or two, so it kind of becomes a moot point.
Okay, let's go take a couple of phone bridge call-in questions. Marcia Dunn, Associated Press.
Can you hear me there?
Yeah, go ahead, Marcia.
Yes, I'm wondering, is there any kind of early word on just how close that piece of debris might come to the shuttle station complex?
I don't have any information beyond what I've already told you, Marcia. It was a preliminary indication that we may have a conjunction. We didn't have an initial PC, a probability of collision, because we didn't have good enough state vector information to compute that yet. And so next time I talk to you, we'll have quite a bit more data on that, and probably in the interim as well. I just don't have anything today in terms of PC.
And what is the earliest that the shuttle station might perform the avoidance maneuver? Might it happen tomorrow? Would you tend to wait until Tuesday morning?
It all depends on what the actual timing of the event is, Marcia. There's a good chance that we might do something very late in the day tomorrow, but that means we'd have to have a lot of data pretty quickly that we could iterate on. And I don't know what kind of object it is. I don't know what kind of orbit it's in, whether it's in a circular orbit or, in all likelihood, it's not circular. It's somewhat elliptical. It depends on the orbit. It depends on which direction it's coming from. There are a lot of things that factor into when we would want to do a maneuver. But I would tell you it's possible we could do something as early as late tomorrow. I just don't have enough data to tell you any more than that because I don't know enough about the object in the orbit.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. See Todd Halverson, Florida Today. Todd, are you on?
Yes, I am, Kyle. Thanks. Leroy, I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit about the process you'll go through with the solid rocket boosters once they are back in port and over at Hangar AF. And what ultimately is going to happen with these two solid rocket boosters? Are they going to stay at KSC? Are they going to Utah? Could you give us an idea? Thanks.
Well, the normal process in the slip operations is to begin to prepare the boosters so that you can take them out of the water, obviously, and then disassemble them. What we refer to as the booster aspects of the overall solid rocket motor are, the nose cone and the nozzle and things that you can actually physically take apart and take off of the top and the bottom of the rocket, if you will. And then open assessment gets a little bit more involved in terms of actually looking inside the motor. Ultimately, these motors will, the current plan is that they will go back to ATK in Utah And I don't know the details of their journey beyond that.
Okay, I think that's all.
Thanks. That's all from me, Kyle.
Okay, we're back here. Anybody have any follow-ups? All right. A couple of programming notes. The crew heads to bed, as Leroy mentioned, around 6 o'clock today, Central Time. Flight Day 3 highlights start at 8 o'clock Central. And of course, that'll be on the hour, every hour, except for 1 hour. We'll play the Launching Our Dreams special Space Shuttle program video. If you haven't seen that, take a look at that. That'll be at 10 p.m. The next mission status briefing is at 8:30 tomorrow morning, so a little earlier than usual. The next MMT briefing we'll have is tomorrow afternoon at 3, same time after the meeting, which is at 1 o'clock Central. It's all out there on the NASA television schedule. We're up to Rev C right now, so be sure to look for that out on the web at www.nasa.gov/shuttle-TV. We'll be back here tomorrow after the MMT. So thanks a lot, Leroy, and thanks everybody. We'll head back to Mission Control and back to space.
Hi, I'm Michelle Savoy.
Lawrence Baitland.
I'm Faith Knutson.
I'm Taylor Raska.
I'm Julie Bracefield.
I'm Erica Halsey.
And we're the biomedical flight controllers on the final shuttle mission.
And you're watching NASA TV.